Hello, I'm Jenny Fern and welcome to my library. Today I'm going to talk about 4 ways that you can read for free, completely free. So some of these tips might seem really obvious to people who already use them or to avid readers who are used to searching out ways that they don't have to spend a bunch of money for their hobby. But I was having a conversation the other day with somebody who didn't realize that you could, at least in our library system, rent audiobooks through the library completely digitally. So I thought I'd share some of the things that I know and that I've used as resources to read for free. Number 1, your local library system. My town has a local library, but we also have online resources for like the whole county that people have access to, where you can rent digital books and audiobooks super conveniently just through your phone. There's an app called Libby, which is very helpful at providing you access to your library's available books. And I think for me, I just had to give like an address or something to be able to access that. I didn't even have to go into the library system, which was definitely really convenient during COVID times and is now still super convenient if I really want to access some books. This is one of the primary ways that I access audiobooks, digital books, things like manga and graphic novels. Here are some examples. So here, oh my god, that made it worse. So here are some examples of books that I've read recently through this system. Yeah, yesterday I finished reading An Absolutely Remarkable Thing as a library audiobook, which helped me get through some yard work. Before that, I read a digital copy of The Birch Bark House, and currently I am reading a manga, Children of the Whales. So the second way to read books completely for free are to read books that are in the public domain. So in the United States, this is going to be everything that was published before 1928. So I think it's 95 years for the copyright to expire or whatever, and then allow that work to be available for free. It's kind of exciting to think about all of the works that every year you grow older will become available to you for free, if you want to think about aging in a positive light. So there are currently a ton of ways for you to access books that are in the public domain. There's the website Project Gutenberg, which is one of the earliest and most popular ways of accessing these books when I was in college. My little kitty Pebble, who usually doesn't show herself on camera because she's a little feral bean. Oh, look at her. She's playing with a small tennis ball in the hallway. She's definitely not a cuddler, unless it's like the middle of the night. You can also get public domain books through most apps. So when I was in college, I used to use Google Books a lot, and you can just look for everything that's free. And you can also use Kindle. You can look for books that are free on there as well. I maybe should have mentioned this at the beginning, but if you don't realize this, you do not need an e-reader to be able to read books digitally. You can 100% do it on your phone. That is what I do 100% of the time. You can also get access to free audiobooks for books that are in the public domain using the app LibriVox. And that is just amazing. There are volunteers who will read out public domain books so that you can listen to them. There are very occasional ads if you are consuming this content for free, but they're really not a big deal. And also if you listen to it at a high speed, the ads will also be at a higher speed. So this year I read a handful of books using this method of audiobooks from LibriVox. I read John Barleycorn and Kidnapped and The Invisible Man, The Sun Also Rises, partially using LibriVox and partially using the physical copies that I own. The third way that you can read 100% for free is by loaning books amongst friends. I feel like this, for some reason, isn't utilized that frequently. But your friends know you, they know what you might be interested in, you know them, you know what they might be interested in, and you can physically pass books around to each other, and then you'll be able to talk to them about it. I used to have a pretty good group where we would exchange books, and it was a really nice time. I need to make more friends who read. I haven't read any books this year that have been loaned to me, to my knowledge, except for The Name of the Wind, which I did borrow from my sister, which I do need to return to her and pick up the second copy. So in the past, I've read Sabriel and The Lathe of Heaven by borrowing books from people. And this year I've loaned my copy of Don't Sleep, There Are Snakes to a coworker. And the fourth method is to utilize neighborhood little lending libraries. I am a steward of a little free library in my front yard, so I'm a little bit partial to encouraging this behavior. It's a really great way to feel connected and have a sense of camaraderie with your neighborhood. I know that there are a handful more little free libraries in my town, so I'm not sure how widespread they are, if you'll be able to find one near you, but I hope that is true for you. And what I've found is that this can expose you to all types of books that you wouldn't normally look at. So locating the little free library can feel a little bit like a treasure hunt, and then opening it up can feel a little bit like a mystery box. I have taken out a handful of books from my little free library that are adult books, but I haven't yet read them. But I have read a ton of children's books from my little free library, and that has been a blast. Recently, I read Pearl Moskowitz's Last Stand, which had really beautiful artwork and just a really compassionate message. And I also read Centerfield Ball Hawk, which is like a I'm learning how to read by myself kind of book. And that book made me so sad. I just felt so much sympathy for this little boy. That's basically it. That's all that I could think of. If you have other methods that you use to read books for free that are legal, don't put anything that's like sketch, please. Please leave that in the comments. I'd love to hear about the additional resources that you utilize. I'd also really be interested if there's any legal way of accessing full manga series. I've run into this issue before where my library will only have it up to a certain volume, and then if I want to finish the series, I have to go out and purchase the rest of the volume, which is a little bit inconvenient because I'm already invested. And I'd also be interested in if you are from a different region or a different country where your access to books is a little bit different. I would love to hear what resources you can use or how things are different where you live. And I also want to point out that there is an element to the social medias that surround books, like Book Talk or BookTube or Bookstagram, that encourage the purchasing of full price physical books. You'll see that people are usually holding or showing physical copies of books, myself included. And I do want to point out that most of my reading has been through the library system, through public domain books, and through thrift store copies of books. So this 100% does not need to be an expensive hobby. If you have absolutely no budget for reading, you can still read to your heart's content. I did see a TikTok the other day. There's this audio about like having an expensive hobby. I've seen it used for like knitting and crochet before, but she was using it for books. And I was like, what? Like this can be a completely free hobby. So one of the things that I like to do to close out a video is to do a highly specific book recommendation. So today we have a book to read when you need a good laugh to brighten your day. And for this, I have the recommendation, The Time Machine Did It by John Swartzwelder. I have no idea how to say that. By John Swartzwelder. This is, as it says here, by the writer of 59 episodes of The Simpsons. So this is by somebody who's used to writing funny content. This book follows a guy who's pretty inept. He does have Homer Simpson qualities in terms of like his intelligence, I guess, or his naivete, his ignorance. And he is in a strange series of events that leads him to traveling through time. I think this will be a little goofy, a little fun, and help you feel a little happier and have a better day. It's also quite short, so you could read it at the end of the day probably. So that is all I had for you today. If you want a book recommendation, leave your highly specific book recommendation request in the comments, and I will talk to you soon.